So as you know, star charts are used by astronomers to navigate across the night sky and find stars, constellations, planets, and so forth. At SFA, we use these four star charts primarily, and they map the entire night sky. The night sky can be represented by this large sphere, the celestial sphere, an arbitrary radius sphere with the dots corresponding to stars at a variety of different distances away from the Earth. You can see that the rotational axis of the Earth points straight up here to a point on the sphere called the North Celestial Pole. Similarly, this is called the South Celestial Pole, and a projection of the Earth's equator out onto the night sky is called the Celestial Equator. Now, if you take a knife and say cut the top part of this celestial sphere off and then squash it onto a sheet of paper, this bowl shape becomes this map with concentric circles. Here's a close-up of that star chart number 1 of the northern region. If we zoom in on this north area here, we can see the North Celestial Pole, and just to the upper right of that is the North Star Polaris. Hanging down from there is an asterism called the Little Dipper. You can see these stars here are just a subset of a bigger constellation called Ursa Minor, the Small Bear. In a similar way, we have the Big Dipper down here being a subset of the bigger constellation called Ursa Major, the Big Bear. If we also cut the bottom part of this celestial sphere off and then squash that onto a sheet of paper, we get another similarly looking star chart called star chart number 4 of the southern region. And you see there's no relatively bright star near the South Celestial Pole. So there's really no such thing as a South Star. We don't really use this star chart very much because you have to be below the Earth's equator to be able to see many of these stars and constellations. For example, to see the toucan right here, you have to be in Australia to see that. If we now take a knife and cut through here and do the same thing on the other side, we're left with a barrel shape. Then if we split that into 2 pieces, we see that this celestial equator, which was a curve, becomes a line on star chart number 2. Well, that's star chart number 3 there. And here's a line for the celestial equator on star chart number 2. So looking at star chart number 2, we can see that our familiar Orion is right here. And we have the celestial equator going right through the middle. But also there's another curve that goes above the celestial equator on this chart and below it on the next chart. It's called the ecliptic. And each one of these dates along the ecliptic corresponds to the location of the sun. Also, each one of these constellations that we see along the ecliptic is called a zodiac constellation, such as Leo, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, and so forth. So there's 12 of these constellations along the ecliptic called the zodiac constellations. Here is star chart number 3, and you can see Capricorn, Sagittarius, Scorpio, and so forth. Taking a closer look, you can also see Libra and Virgo. Again, the ecliptic is now going below the celestial equator over here, and each one of these dates along the ecliptic corresponds to the location of the sun on that day. So in summary, constellations are simply just recognizable patterns of stars on the celestial sphere that we find in the night sky. There's a total of 88 constellations. Orion is just one of those. 12 of those 88 are located along the ecliptic, and those are called zodiac constellations. Also, I pointed out that there's this recognizable pattern that's not one of the main 88 constellation, and that would be, for example, the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper. Those are referred to as asterisms because they're not one of the 88 mainly recognizable patterns. Here we see the night sky facing toward the north. Here's the North Star. Here's the Little Dipper. I've kind of highlighted the stars to make it easier to see. You can see the Big Dipper here, Little Dipper there. 2 stars in the cup of the Big Dipper. Dubhe and Merak point right over here to Polaris to help you find it. Because as we'll find out, Polaris is not the brightest star in the sky. It's just located in a special place in the sky. It also begins the Little Dipper, which pours right into the Big Dipper. We'll learn more about how to use these star charts as we move throughout the course.